Nothing looks the same anymore as it used to back in those days. So if you didn't know it, from about 40 years ago, really just a memory. So. Over the years, whenever I come back to town, I take my drive through town. It's just kind of a little ritual that we've always done. I drive down 3rd Avenue here, and I always look over at this building over here because when it comes to the music, that became part of our lives over the years. I guess I'd have to say that I think it originated over there. My dad came home from work one day, and he had a box in his truck. In the box was a contraption. He pulled it out. It was an accordion. And that wasn't a very popular instrument back then. It's even less popular these days. But nevertheless, he brought it home. He gave it to me as a gift. He had bought it at that store right there. Well, it's not there anymore. The store that was there. The store was called Friesen Music Center. I remember it just like it was yesterday. Pete and Elsie Friesen ran it. And it was just a little local hometown music store, but it was hopping, it was jamming. Every kind of instrument you could imagine was in there. I took that accordion. They gave me a few lessons. They taught me how to play it. I didn't play it a lot because, for the most part, I was kind of embarrassed to bring it to school. But I did play it for a grade school talent contest one time. Later on, as the years went by, I became the church organist, and the Catholic Church is just right next door here. And that I kind of loved. It was an odd thing because, I was in rock bands then in high school, and it's kind of it's an odd thing, to be playing in a rock band on Friday night and then Sunday morning playing a pipe organ in the Catholic Church. But in a way, it's kind of cool because pipe organ is a very powerful instrument. I was married when I was 19 or 20. So my wife and I, we were high school sweethearts. So she was 19, I was 20. So right after high school, we got married, and then that's how you did it back in those days. You got married young.
I first met Paul when he and Kathy were in high school. They're both graduates of Worthington Senior High School, and they were always together. I think Paul saw Kathy, and it was love at first sight, and they were constant companions and best of friends.
We've known each other for more than a couple of decades. When I reminisce on that, I've been in the gift industry for many years. And about 2 decades ago, I had this guy by the name of Paul stop in my store. And he told me, this was around Christmas time, and he said, I think I'm getting out of the music business. He said, it's just too hard. I'm raising a family, and I've got to have more security in what I do.
I said that?
You said that to me. And the interesting thing was, within a year was when your story started to unfold. And you found out about your parents, all of your parents, and you came back into to my store a year later. And I could tell you had a sense of confidence, as you've always had, but you actually had a sense of purpose. You realized that you actually had a story to tell.
Imagine getting a call one night. You could put yourself in my position real easy. The phone rings, you answer it. Hey, bro, I'm your brother. And your first thought is, well, I didn't know I had a brother. Well, and the next thing is, by the way, you are Lakota. What? Well, imagine hearing that one time. And so I had no idea I was Native American. So you're hearing a lot of information in almost a split second. It changes your life. It kind of, there's a transformation that happens instantly. You know, I've done some reading here. I've done a lot of motivational reading. It's what they would call a paradigm shift. You know, in a split second, everything that you've seen now, it's still there, but you see it completely different. It takes on a new form. When we came back home, it was only, that first weekend where, when we started to tell our life story to our new family, we realized right away that, man, we had been given special opportunity. We really did have good fortune as a young person. If I had remained on the reservation, life would have been really quite difficult. Certainly music would have never been in our lives. Our family was poor, and times were tough back in those times, the 50s and 60s, back on our reservation. You know, somebody buying you instruments and allowing you to take lessons and put a band together, it would have never happened. So that happened to us on, you know, being off the reservation. So now our new family, realizing that, said, you should really use that music. You should go out into the world. Now you can represent us. You can represent who you really are. You can be a musician, but now you can be a Native American musician. You can use this new culture. And of course, that's all it took to, well, wow, yeah, here we go. You know, our music is different. I try not to place any expectations on our audience or what we can really do musically. Because once you do that, it limits you a little bit. The one thing that I hope that we can do is to express the voice of a culture that hasn't really had a voice in mainstream entertainment, musically speaking. It's just starting to emerge right now, and I refer to it as pioneering one of the last musical frontiers. So I hope that we represent a voice for a culture. I hope we do it in a positive way, in a time when I think our country and the world needs a positive voice. It's a real delicate thing. We've had to walk a fine line that a lot of music groups haven't had to. And so we're kind of confined to a world of underground music to a certain extent, but that's not a bad place. Because when you try to maintain the values and the virtues of a culture, and when you try to hang on to the respect of the traditional ways of a culture, but yet try to advance it up into modern times, it's a difficult process, and it just requires patience. I mean, we're 20 years into this, and in many ways, it's just like we're getting started. And so we're careful. We've turned down a lot of work. We've turned down a lot of opportunities with managers and agents just for that reason. So where that leaves you is kind of at a point where you're somewhat in control of your destiny, more than some groups are. But you just have to take the high road. High road is a slow road, but it's a rewarding one. started
Want to come into school for anything?
Yeah, you guys want to walk in for a second? We'll walk in.
Coming tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm coming to your concert.
You are?
Yeah, I am.
Cool.
You just missed Carrie.
I saw.
Oh,
No,
did
I
you
saw
see her?
her. They were driving out, and I saw them over there. You know.
Yeah, Nancy was bringing them.
We didn't make any plans. We're just kind of. I'm taking a little walk through town here, so I just wanted to.
You can come on.
All right, we're right. We will. Give me 5. Oh, hey, man, you're good. Tomorrow we're gonna play for a concert over in the Memorial Auditorium right across from your school here. Yeah.
Are you from it?
I grew up here. I went to school right in here when I was about your age.
This is probably the biggest show for Paul and Kathy coming back to Worthington. We've played here before, but this show with everything coming together, the time, the years, Paul and Kathy just celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary. So from coming home to have people that come up to him just as we pulled into Worthington, Paul, I remember you coming to the music store, and you know, we remember you as a high school, you know, they remember, you know, there's all this, so you've got your whole life that's all coming down to this show.
Everyone remembers Paul and Kathy and their parents here in town, and people are acquainted with Paul and Kathy's children, Shane and Nicole, and to know that they're part of Brulé, and now that Paul and Kathy's grandchildren are a part of Brulé, just extends the family connections to Worthington. And Worthington is very proud to forever claim Paul and Kathy as still hometown kids.
I was fortunate. I guess I was blessed that I was allowed to grow up in those times, back in this community, back in this part of the country, in the Midwest, the whole thing. You don't realize it until you're in the last cycle of your life. Then you get a glimpse of the bigger picture, and you get a chance to see how it all fit together. You know, I come back to Worthington to visit is one thing, but to come back to town to perform, it's a circle of life that has great significance. To have it all come back around and to see how it helps other people, see how it can help another culture, see how it can hopefully bring pride to a community. I don't know. All I can say is that I feel like one of the luckiest people around.
Visit pioneer.org/postcards to catch up on missed episodes and to find out more about your favorite segments. This program on Pioneer Public Television is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008. Additional support provided by Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. ShalomHillFarm.org. The Arrowwood Resort and Conference Center, your ideal choice for Minnesota resorts, offering luxury townhomes, 18 holes of golf, Darling Reflections Spa, Big Splash Water Park, and much more. Alexandria, Minnesota. Explore hundreds of lakes, trails, and attractions for a great vacation or a place to hold an event. ExploreAlex.com. Tri-State Brain and Spine Institute, with locations in Alexandria, Edina, Crookston, and Maple Grove. Doctors dedicated to evaluating and treating all types of brain and spine problems, no matter how complex.